Okay. Today we can do the prayers all together. Om Sada Shiva Samaram Shankaracharya Asmadacharya Vande Paramparam Saraswati Namastubhyam Vardhiti Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhirbhavatu me sada. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavadhidamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Hari
Vasudevendra Yoginram Jnana-pradam Mukkunam-hitarthaya Tattva-bodho vidiyate.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Okay, so fourfold qualifications, sadhana, chatushtayam. This is the topic under discussion. And what are the four qualifications?
Viveka, Vairagya, Shataka Sampati.
Sampati and Mumukshutvam. And what is this? What is the qualification for?
This is the eligibility qualification for
student.
For knowledge. Which kind of knowledge?
Atma
Jnanam. Okay, so it is the eligibility or the qualifications necessary for Atma Jnanam. And now we are in the third one, that is Shat Sampatti. How many are there in this?
Six.
So under Shamadhi Shat Sampatti, we have 6. And what are the 6? What are their names?
Shama,
Uparama,
Shraddha, Samadhanam.
Yes. Shama, Dama, Uparamaha, Titiksha, Shraddha, and Samadhanam. And we had seen the first two in detail last time. We saw Shamaha and Damaha, right? We said that Shamaha is the Mano Nigraha, control over the mind, discipline over the thoughts. And Damaha is the Indriya Nigraha, control over the sense organs. So rather than saying control, it is better to say mastery over the sense organs, because control can imply an element of suppression, but we have very clearly stated that there is no suppression involved. It is mastery, not suppression. Okay. And why do we need this Dhamma? Why do we need to control or to monitor what is entering through the sense organs? It is like doing a security check to make sure that no disturbing elements enter inside. So just like at the airport, in the gate, they do security check, right? Before letting you inside fully, they do a security check and no kind of disturbing element is allowed inside. So in the same way, when we are talking about the sense organs, we do not allow anything that has the tendency to disturb the mind. To maintain that peace of mind, we make sure that the sense organs are directed in a proper way. Okay. Now today we will be starting Uparamaha, which is on the screen. Uparamakaha.
Uparamakaha.
Swadharmanushtanameva.
Swadharmanushtanameva.
Okay. So I will mute you all without the option to unmute. And Then later we will pause for a break. Okay. So what is Uparamaha? The author says Swadharma Anushtanam Eva. Anushtanam means to be established or to be performing. Eva means only. So to only perform Swadharma. This is the author's definition for Uparamaha. Now, before we see what is Swadharma, we have to understand the word Uparamaha. Now, there are three meanings to the word Uparamaha. The first meaning is maintaining the calmness of the mind, quietude of the mind, withdrawal of the mind, limiting the extrovertedness of the mind. All of this is Uparamaha. Now, you may find this to be very similar to Shamaha, right? In Shama, we said it is the tranquility of mind or peace of mind. So it is valid to ask what is the difference between tranquility of mind and calmness of mind? Both appear same, right? So the difference is actually in prevention versus cure. So in Shamaha, what we are doing, we are calming down an agitated mind. So a mind that is agitated, when you calm it down, that is called Shamaha. So bringing the peace of mind, it is a cure. Whereas here, you're maintaining the calmness of a calm mind. You're not allowing it to be disturbed again. So this is like a prevention. So the example given is like that of a child, small child. So you know these small children, they're very active. They keep running around. And what do the mothers do? They catch the child and hold them, right, in the lap. You just make them sit in the lap. And after 2 minutes, again the child wants to run. So again he gets out and he's about to run, but the mother again catches him, brings him back, doesn't let him go. So this you keep doing, catching, bringing it back, catching, bringing it back. So what you're doing, you're maintaining. So this is Uparamaha, not allowing the mind to go extroverted again. This is Uparamaha. And why do we require this? Why do we require that the mind doesn't get distracted or extroverted? Because a calm, focused mind is necessary for the study of Vedanta. A shallow, distracted mind cannot handle any kind of deeper subject, be it Vedanta or anything else. A distracted mind cannot handle. And that is why the mind needs to be maintained calm. So this maintenance of calm mind is Uparamaha, one meaning. Okay. The second meaning of the word Uparamaha, in some contexts, it is Sannyasa Ashramaha, meaning the monastic life. So sometimes they may use the word Uparamaha in this context also. Now here, the author has given a third definition called Swadharma Anushtanam, being established in Swadharma or performing Swadharma. So now what is Swadharma? Before we can understand what is Swadharma, we have to understand the different types of activities that are there. So according to the Vedas, there are 5 types of activities. So all the different karma, all the different activities or duties are classified into 5 categories. The first is called Nitya Karma. Nitya Karma means the daily duties, what has to be done on a daily basis. So when we are talking from the Vaidika point of view, if you take a strict Vaidika definition, then there they are referring to all the daily Vaidika rituals that need to be done. For example, Pancha Mahayajna or Sandhya Vandana or Agnihotram. So these are Vaidika rituals that need to be done on a daily basis without fail. Since in today's world, we don't have that kind of a Vaidika lifestyle, it is not so predominantly followed these days, we will broaden the definition of Nitya Karma a little bit, and we will just say all those duties that have to be done by a person on a daily basis. For example, if you are a parent, Every day you have to be a parent. You cannot say today is Sunday, I'm going to take a break from parenting and I will not feed the child. Can you say that? No, right? It is a nitya karma, a daily duty to be a parent. So like that, whatever is a daily duty, we call those nitya karma. The second type of activity is naimittika karma. These are activities that have to be done on a occasional basis. They don't come up daily, they come up occasionally. Like, for example, festivals. For example, if there is a marriage, if there is a death in the family. So all of these come about occasionally, just sometimes. And on those days, you have to do certain extra duties, right? If there is a marriage, some extra rituals have to be done. If there is a death, certain extra rituals have to be done. Same for festivals or birth of a child. So on some days, you may have to do certain extra duties. And those are called as naimittika karma. Then there is a third category of activities prescribed by the Vedas called kamya karma. Kamya karma are those duties or those activities that you do to fulfill certain desires. So in the Vedas, there are a lot of rituals given to fulfill any and every desire that a person may have. So there is rituals to go to heaven. There are rituals to acquire wealth, acquire kingdom, or to have children, or anything, even for health, anything. So for anything there is that you can have as a desire, there is some karma or some activity or Vaidika activity, ritual that is given, which is called as kamya karma to fulfill that desire. And it is very interesting in the Vedas, if you see, almost 70 to 80%, a large percentage, majority percentage is devoted more to these kamya karmas. And, so it is not that having desire or trying to fulfill is a bad thing. In fact, Veda encourages you to do certain rituals. And why? So that once you go through them, only then you will realize the futility of them, that they are not really the end. They will not bring you everything that you wanted. Only when you go through and come out from the other side, then you will realize that, okay, this didn't give me what I was searching. Then you realize the transient nature of these things, and then there is maturity. Then you can enter into the jnana portion more easily. Otherwise, if we try to suppress desires, then it doesn't work, right? It only backfires later. So that is why in the Vedas, you will find a great number of rituals, and the aim of these rituals is to finally propel you towards jnanam itself. Right, so some of these rituals are kamya karma, which is to fulfill desires. Then the fourth category of activities is called prayashchitta karma, remedial actions. So these are actions that you do after doing something wrong. So you have done a wrong action, now you are suffering, and to alleviate the suffering or to provide a remedy, you do prayashchitta karma. Like, for example, suppose you have eaten some bad food and now there is food poisoning. So what do you have to do? You have to take some medicine. So that taking medicine is a prayashchitta karma, a remedial action to correct a previous wrong action. Okay. So this is prayashchitta, and sometimes if you are looking at it from the strict Vaidika definition, then there are again certain rituals prescribed or certain activities that are prescribed that you have to do as a solution or a remedy for certain kind of problems. But in general, if you look at it, then again, any action that is correcting a previous wrongdoing is a prayashchitta karma. And finally, the fifth category is a nishiddha karma a forbidden action, those actions that you are not supposed to do. So these in the Vedas, you will find certain statements telling you not to do certain things. For example, do not drink alcohol or do not speak the untruth. These kind of statements you may find. Now, we are not supposed to take these statements as commandments. Okay, it is not like an instruction that you have to follow. If you look at it that way, then what is the purpose of free will? So it will go into a counterproductive loop. So we're not supposed to take these as commandments, but as advice coming from a source with superior knowledge. So, for example, if there is a doctor and the doctor tells you do not drink because it spoils your health, it affects your liver, in the long term, ill health will come and even death might happen. And a lot of, the doctor can give you a lot of biochemistry reasons why, how the alcohol may affect the body inside and all these things they may explain. Now, whether you understand that or not, when the doctor says do or don't do something, we accept it. Why? Because we realize that the doctor has some superior knowledge that we may not have. So I may not understand the reason. If the doctor says don't mix this medicine with this medicine, we may not know the reason, but we follow because we understand that this is practical advice coming from a place of higher knowledge. So we have to look at the Vedas in the same way, and they tell not to do something. So this is coming from a deeper understanding of things, and it is a good idea to follow. If you don't follow, what will happen? It is not that Veda will come and punish you, right? It is that that own action has some consequence of a negative nature. It has some negative consequence, and to avoid that, it is telling you. Right? So it is not out of fear of Vedas that we follow these things, but through understanding that there is some reason behind this. Even if we don't know the reason, there is something here that I may not understand, but somebody else has understood, and so it is better to take their advice. So certain nishiddha karma are there, forbidden activities. Now, coming back to Uparamaha. The author has said, Swadharma Anushtanam Eva. He says, perform only Swadharma. And according to this list, what is Swadharma? Swadharma is the first two. Okay. And what about the remaining three? We have to avoid or eliminate as much as possible. So retaining the first two and avoiding or reducing, eliminating the remaining three. Why? Because the first two are Vedanta friendly. They will propel you towards higher Chitta Shuddhi. They will increase or decrease the FIR levels. They will reduce the disturbances in the mind. Whereas the other three have the potential to disturb the mind. Even Kamya Karma. Okay, Kamya Karma, like Kama. So in Bhagavad Gita, later you will see Kama has two byproducts, two children. What are they? Lobha and Krodha. If the desire is fulfilled, there is greed now, that I want the next thing, I want the bigger thing. So if desire is fulfilled, it goes in the direction of greed. And if desire is not fulfilled, it goes in the direction of anger, krodha. There is frustration that it didn't happen. So Kamya Karma also has the potential to disturb the mind, either through lobha or through krodha. And of course, Prayashchitta Karma, why it has to be avoided? Because Prayashchitta Karma comes about only when some previous wrong action is done. So indirectly, it is telling you to avoid the first wrong action itself. Then automatically, Prayashchitta Karma will also be avoided. And Nishiddha Karma, as we discussed, certain actions can have negative consequences, which we may not be aware of at this level. So when somebody with higher knowledge tells to do or not do certain things, it is a good idea to listen so that we can avoid future suffering. So Nishiddha karma also has to be avoided. So through this, the first two are maintained, which are called Swadharma, and we perform Swadharma and try to avoid the other three as much as possible. And through this, what happens? The FIR levels will improve. Improve means decrease, because we want them to be low. We don't want mental disturbances. Okay, so this is Uparamaha, Swadharma Anushtanam Eva. So now I will unmute and you can ask any questions.
Medaji.
Yes.
Medaji, please, can you go to the previous slide? Because there was Uparama, Sannyas Ashram, and one. Thank you.
Medaji, when we study the Tattva-bodha, we see that the words always finish in visarga, like Shamanaha, Damaha, Uparamaha. Is this like a Sanskrit rule, or
Well,
and
that's
when we're speaking with someone, like shall we say Uparama or we say Uparamaha? How do we refer to this concept?
yeah, so that's a grammar question. When you are talking about Uparamaha, when you put the visarga, we're talking about a subject. Whenever visarga comes, it generally means this is the subject. So when we are talking in English and you just quickly say Uparama, it's in English, in the flow it happens. But in Sanskrit, when you are talking, you are supposed to say Uparamaha when it is the subject.
Okay.
And the word may change according to the grammar construction of the sentence. The ending may change according to the grammar.
One more question. We were talking about the Nishiddha karma.
Yeah.
So is there any list of these forbidden actions? Is there any source of this list so that
it is a scattered list across the Vedas.
Okay.
In different places, different things are given. There are general rules, what most of the religions say. For example, do not speak lies, do not cheat somebody, do not hurt others, do not drink, these kind of a more general list.
Okay.
Medha, I have one question, please.
Yeah.
In the definition of Uparama, the second definition was.
Preeti ji, I'm not able to hear you. I think you have to come a little closer to the mic.
In the definition of Uparamaha,
Yeah.
You had the second definition was sannyas ashrama.
Yeah.
Could we just discuss that? So part of Uparama is to withdraw from social responsibilities, is it? Or how do you define that?
Sometimes, in some contexts, in some places, when the word Uparama is used, there they are talking about sannyasa ashrama and not specifically Swadharma Anushtanam or maintaining calmness. So it depends on the context. Sometimes, in certain places, we may find this word, and that time we have to take that meaning. But
So
here we
where
are not.
does this context arise, please? Where Uparama is sannyasa ashrama?
In other texts, in Tattva-bodha, we are not going deeper into that.
Okay, thank you.
Medaji,
Yeah.
nowadays everybody is doing Satyanarayana Puja and all. They come under Kamya Karma or similar puja?
Okay, you have to wait for Bhagavad Gita, the later chapters. So it depends on many things. One of the main things it depends on is the sankalpa. So if there is a sankalpa is a resolution at the beginning of the ritual that is done. So you may say that this offering I want because I want this thing. I'm doing this activity because I want this result. So that is the sankalpa before you start, and then you do. So that is a kamya karma, sakama karma, you can say. So whenever there is a desire for something. Now you can do the same Sandhya Vandana or Agnihotram or any ritual without any specific desire or with the desire for chitta shuddhi. Not having desire or having desire for chitta shuddhi, both are equivalent. So if there is no sankalpa taken, or if there is a sankalpa taken that I want chitta shuddhi, then it is counted as nishkama karma and will be, will reward with chitta shuddhi. See, finally, what happens when you do a karma? There is a punyam generated. And the punyam can be encashed for some material gains or for spiritual gains. So the choice is up to you. So when you make a sankalpa, you're saying, I want that thing. And that is where it will go.
But most of the pujas are towards material gains or some health
Yes.
benefits. So they come under kamya karma, in my understanding.
Yes.
So we should minimize it, for example.
Well, suppression again is not an answer. You have to outgrow it. You have to mature beyond it.
Okay. Thank you.
If there is a child and you forcefully take away his toy, he's going to cry. But if you wait, the child will grow up and realize that, okay, this is a toy. It's not very meaningful to me anymore. And he will himself give up the toy. That is truly giving it up.
Can I ask?
I would want, if I may ask, you
Yes.
said the first 2 points are something which we should be doing, and the other 3 points are things which we should avoid. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, why would you want to avoid kamya karma? If I am doing some puja to get something, is it not part of my naimitya karma?
Because it has the potential to disturb.
But then I want something, and we are encouraging that you should go for it. So while we pray, we are more
See,
focused on it.
through maturity, the ultimate understanding is that you will have to drop the desires. But a lot of people don't have this vision, right? When the desire is there, when it happens, there is some, negative disturbance in the mind. Or when it doesn't happen, there's a disturbance in the mind. It has the potential to disturb most people, kamya karma. Only when you understand that I have to grow beyond this. What do you say? It has the potential to disturb, but through that disturbance, people will grow. But some people may not also. It may
Can
take
I
more
ask one
time.
specific question connected with that?
Yeah.
For example, I want to achieve a certain goal in life. Now, in order to be present to my goal, I have many positive affirmations during the day that I've got it. It's kind of a kamya karma only. It may be associated with some prayer as well, that I've got this. Okay. It helps me remain in focus for the goal that I'm working on. Will that not be called a positive thing?
See, whenever there is a goal or a desire, we can say a more general word is desire. You can call it goal, ambition, whatever. But finally, it is a desire. The point is that it has the tendency to disturb most people, whether it is achieved or not achieved. People eventually mature and grow, but that happens across several lifetimes. It doesn't happen at one shot. That maturity takes time to come. But throughout that, or if they don't learn the lesson, what happens? They are constantly being disturbed. They are constantly in a state of worry. Will this be achieved? Will this not be achieved? And suppose it is achieved, then what happens? Lobha, greed. The next desire comes, and that desire will be bigger than the previous desire. So desire can be a useful thing and can also be sometimes a dangerous thing. It is like a fire. The more you feed the desire, the fire only grows bigger, right? It's like a real fire, the more things you put inside the fire, it grows bigger. And if it goes out of control, it can be a very dangerous thing, right? So not that fire is totally useless. We are not saying that. But if it goes out of control, it can be dangerous. And that is the thing about desire. It can lead to a lot of
Thank you. Thank you.
destruction.
Got it.
Nedaji, I what have about a the desire question. for moksha?
Desire for moksha, at this stage, you have to keep it. It is necessary. And it is not
I have a
karma
question.
karma.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a question. Like if you're asking, you're doing prayer, and if you keep on asking, God just be with me, and you feel that He's there. So is it come in Kamya Karma or it is come in Nimityam Karma? Like you're doing daily ritual, just asking God to be with you.
Be with you for what?
Just
Depends.
be.
Is it because so actually you will have to wait, for Bhagavad Gita. A lot of these discussions happen there. But prayer in general is encouraged, or having Ishvara in your life is encouraged. If, God be with me is a prayer for mumukshutvam, or a prayer towards moksha, in the direction of moksha, it is a good thing. At this level, it is necessary also. In fact, the fourth qualification, if you see, is mumukshutvam, a strong desire for moksha. So that
But be with me, I mean to say, to guide with me, to make me do good karmas, to be focused on the right direction. That is all. I mean, like when you ask God to be with me, so obviously you are asking that you should focus in the sense ki your goal
so
should be
indirectly
clear.
you are asking for a good life. So it is kamya.
No.
Medhaji,
asking good
indirectly it
One
is
second.
wisdom.
One second. If you want God for God's sake, it is moksha. If you want God because you want a good life, it is kama. Okay, there's a difference. So you have to be clear. So God be with me is a very vague statement. What is the true intention? You want to understand God. You want to,
Yes,
go in the
yes.
direction of moksha. Then it is mumukshutvam only. There's no difference. If you're saying God be with me because I'm scared of life and because I'm scared of the things that may come up, and I need strength, or I need this, I need that, it is very much kama.
No, it is just oneness, like togetherness. That is what.
Togetherness is mumukshutvam.
For wisdom, Medhaji, for wisdom, if we are praying, so is it comes in Nitya Karma?
Wisdom for what? You want wisdom to run your business, or you want wisdom for
No, wisdom
understanding
for a right
scriptures?
decision. Wisdom for
Or
the
wise
right.
decision for what? For your day-to-day life, or to study scriptures? Again, one leads in the direction of kama, one is moksha.
Okay.
So if we, excuse me, Mehtaji, if we pray, God, please be in my thoughts and deeds and in the things I say, how would you categorize that?
Again, like I'm saying, if the intention is because you want materialistic gains, because I want a good life, I want good health, I don't want troubles, I don't want this, I want, life to be smooth. It is very much kama. If the desire is truly, I want God for God's sake, I want to understand God, I want to be one with God, and in a true sense, okay, because only you know your real intentions, and there's no point denying yourself also what you want.
Okay.
So if you truly want God in that sense, that is mumukshutvam.
Okay, thank you.
Medhaji, the Nitya Karma, like you said, there is a list of Vedika Karma, like Nitya Karma. Can we can we know it possibly?
Which one? For Nitya
The
Karma?
Nitya Karma, yes.
Yes, it will be covered in Gita, I think 4th or 5th chapter. Yeah, there you will see the Pancha Mahayajnas. Some other rituals are there, like Sandhyavandana and Agnihotram. There you will find. But here in these classes, we don't cover them, and we don't discuss the procedure and things like that.
No problem. Thank you.
Medhaji.
Yes,
Medhaji.
Vandana ji, you can ask.
I just wanted to ask you, you have given 3 parts of Uparama. First is maintaining a calm mind, second is Sannyas Ashram, and third is Swadharma Anushtanam. So what is the difference between the first one and the third one? Because the third one is also leading to the first one.
Yes. So here the author, the meaning of Uparamaha is maintaining calmness. But the author has to explain. You cannot just say maintaining calmness. Somebody will ask, how? How do I maintain calmness? Or what do you mean by maintaining calmness? Then he says Swadharma Anushtanam, through the performance of your duties only. So even the performance of duties, he is considering it as Uparamaha.
And the second one, sannyas ashram, is completely different.
Yes, it comes in a different context. In Tattva Bodha, we are not using that context so much, but in other places you may come across this.
Thank you.
May I ask, Medhaji?
Yeah.
One word is already to Vidhi Nisheda. Vidhi means to actions to be done. Nisheda means to be avoided, actions to be avoided.
Yeah.
There is one bifurcation also, Vihita karma and Nihita karma. Will you please put light on it?
Vihita karma and?
Niyata karma.
Yeah, it is the same. It is just another name for Vidhi Nisheda.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on?
Prince Batnaji's question.
Yes,
She's in the hand.
No, we are done. I think she can lower the hand now.
Ma'am, this side Amit, I have one question. Like
Yeah.
we were talking about in Praschit karma. So let's say one did some karma and he was not aware that he is doing wrong karma, but at a later stage he realized that he did something wrong. Then I think he should do the Praschit.
Yes, you should do prayashita if you have done the wrong thing. But what is being said is avoid the wrong thing itself. Then automatically prayashita is also avoided.
Yes, a wrong thing can be avoided once we have the knowledge, but if we didn't have the knowledge, then yeah, many things which by default people do as a wrong.
Yes. So knowingly, don't do the wrong thing. If you don't know, then, maybe if somebody tells or, if somebody gives some good advice and still you go against and do, it could have been avoided, right? Or knowingly, like, I think we do this on a day-to-day basis. We know that junk food is bad, but still people eat junk food, right? People know that smoking is bad. It's written on the packets itself, right? But still people smoke. So that is knowingly doing the wrong thing.
My question is that let's say we were not aware that this karma is bad, but after reading scriptures and things, we came to know that something wrong has been done. Then should we attempt to do the praschit or should we not attempt to do the praschit?
Yes, you can. It will give relief. It will alleviate the suffering.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it is 9:40. We do not have actually enough time for the next one. Titiksha. The next one is Titiksha. So I'll just give you a very brief idea, and the detail we will see in the next class because we actually don't have the time now to go into full depth. So Titiksha means forbearance or tolerance or patience. And here it says, we can read this. Titiksha ka.
Titiksha
Shitoshna sukha dukkhadi. Okay. So Titiksha means tolerance or forbearance, patience, and or resilience. So that is what the word Sahishnutvam means. The last word here, Sahishnutvam, means tolerance. Tolerance with regard to what? Shita Ushna and Sukha Dukkha and Adi. Okay, Adi means etc. So Shita Ushna means heat and cold or cold and heat. Shita is cold, Ushna is heat. And Sukha means pleasure and Dukkha means pain or sorrow. So Shitoshna Sukha Dukkha means having tolerance towards heat and cold or pleasure and pain. And actually, this is a very beautiful, compact little sentence because it covers the whole range of problems in this. What are the whole range of problems we have? There are only two types: physical, mental. So at the physical level, we have Shita Ushna, the opposites of heat and cold, and other things. Whatever physical level problems may be there are represented by Shita Ushna. And mental level problems, Sukha, Dukha, pleasure, pain. So this is pretty much all the problems of life summed up, right? Whether it is either physical or it is either mental. There's no other kind of problem that we can find. Now, these physical kind of problems, they are called Vyadhi in Sanskrit. And mental kind of problems are called Adhi in Sanskrit. Vyadhi and Adhi. So having tolerance towards both these kind of problems, or having immunity, resilience towards both of these kind of physical as well as mental problems, that is titiksha. Okay, so this is a nice compact. You'll find this frequently even in Bhagavad Gita, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkha, meaning physical, mental, and in both the pairs of opposites, all the whole range is covered. Okay, so we'll just stop here for today because there's a long explanation and we'll see that in the next class. Okay, so if you have any more questions, we can just spend a few more minutes and then we can stop.
Medhaji, this does it, I'm not sure if I'm overthinking, but does it mean to go beyond duality?
No, titiksha is just, we're talking very much within duality, but tolerance to the pairs of opposites.
Okay, thank you.
Medhaji,
Yeah.
it's not related to today's question, but
Okay.
I was reviewing my notes with Bhagavad Gita with Raviji, and I found the word turiya. I was wondering if it's the same with samadhi or it's different thing. Turiya.
No, samadhi and turiya are different. Turiyam refers to Brahman. So generally you will find that turiyam is the fourth avastha, they say, no? So you may find some meanings that turiyam is fourth avastha, but actually it is not the fourth avastha. It is the underlying avastha of the three avasthas. So avastha trayam, you have the waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state. And then they say that turiyam is a fourth state beyond these three. But actually it is not some fourth state. It is the state that is the very support of these three states. In other words, it is Brahman or consciousness principle itself. And that is not samadhi. Samadhi is different.
Thank you.
So is Medhaji, is turiya like a substratum underlying the three states?
Yes, it is a very adhishtanam, the support for the other three states.
Okay. And one quick question, Medhaji, I seem to have lost this somewhere. Swadharma Anushtanam is being in our own state or maintaining our own state. Is that the real meaning? Anushtanam, what does that actually stand for?
Anushtanam means to perform or to be established in. Swadharma is here refers to your nitya and naimittika karma. So your daily duties, so to perform daily duties is Swadharma Anushtanam.
Thank you, Medhaji. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we'll stop because actually today I'm traveling, so I'm outside. So we'll end a little early. There's not enough time also for the next one. And we'll continue.
Of course, thank you,
the others
Medhaji, for
the next
taking
time.
the class. Yeah.
Okay, so have a great weekend. We'll end with the prayers. Om Namada
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya
पूर्णमादाय
पूर्णमेव अवशिष्यते।
हरि ओम
Hari Om. Thanks, Mehtaji.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mehtaji.
बहुत बड़ी थी, काफी समय हो गया, सालों हो गए, उसका
Thank
ध्यान
you.
रखें हम लोग।
Bye.